My pappy said, son, you're gonna drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln.
Welcome to the fastest hour in radio, All About Cars. Brought to you by ABC Motors Prescott with your hosts, David, don't call me Dave Spence, and Big Mike Hill.
Hello, this is David, back with Mike here, and he was just playing a segment of one of my wife's favorite songs. You know, I said my wife, and you know from me, Mike, that I never really think of her as my wife. She's my girlfriend.
I know, David, that's why you bring her flowers from the Prescott Flower Shop. I know. You tell me all the time, and you brag about, I had a great date with my girlfriend. It took me like 3 months to figure out that he wasn't cheating on his wife. It's one of those things, so...
I know, but that's the way it should be.
It is. You know, and speaking of girlfriends and wives, and I told you that I was concerned about your safety.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the Mike's serious moment. This is not going to be what I call hilarious, and we'll get to that later. But this is very important to me, David, because I know that you drive a Pontiac Solstice.
You bet I do.
And I know your girlfriend / wife drives a Solstice.
Yeah.
And I know that your son's significant other drives a Solstice.
I know, they look like they're breeding in the yard.
I think they are. But what I'm concerned about is I read last month, at the end of the month, I read that there's a recall on them for ignition switch problem.
Yeah, I heard something about this.
Okay, and I would imagine, because I know you are super Mr. Detail about all this kind of stuff, and so I know that you have to have called your local dealer, and I imagine they were... Did they know? I mean, I know the article said that the dealers weren't going to have parts for a couple days or something, but was the dealer prepared to deal with a guy with 3 solstices coming in? What'd they say when you called them?
Well, let's try that they didn't even know if the cars were covered, which really shocked me. You would think that they would know, because you find out about this, you can punch it up on the internet, it was like a press release. So somehow I got this weird idea that the dealers have probably received communiques from GM.
Well, GM caught a lot of heat about, they knew about these parts were bad and blah, blah, blah. And be that what it may, you would imagine GM being the, having some sense that they would have called or sent out a communication to their dealers saying, this is how we're dealing with this. This is the list of VIN numbers. I know I've taken my Chrysler for a Chrysler recall. They ran the VIN. They said, yes, it needs the recall, or no, it's already been done. And so you got there and they had no clue?
They actually didn't know, and at the time told me they didn't think so. And then they did eventually call me back and say, oh, yeah, you were right, it was covered. Now, don't mind me. I'd only looked up on the internet and actually read the press release information. And right now I'm looking at it sitting here. I'm looking at USA Today. And what's it tell me? It tells me on March 28th, 2014, that GM's got this recall out, and it says GM will replace the ignition switch in all model years of Chevrolet Cobalt, HHR, Pontiac G5, Solstice, and Saturn Ion, and Sky. Now
I want a Sky.
You want a Sky?
Can I have one?
You like the Sky better than the Solstice?
No, I'm just not going to drive around in one of your spawn cars.
Part of the family.
Seriously.
Now that will be our hilarious moment.
That's a hilarious moment.
Brought to you by the hair layer in the Granite Dells there.
Really? What's the hair layer?
The hair layer is, Erin does your hair.
I know she does.
She's right over there at the roundabout by Watson Lake, right next to Twin Lakes Market. She's got a little spot there. She's got a couple of nice chairs, room for your kids to run around, and she's super, super good with kids. I heard, speaking of doing kids' hair, she did Batman's hair, is what I was told by a little boy.
She did Batman's hair?
I had a little boy, Robert Clayton's son, Drew, told me that Erin cuts Batman's hair.
That's amazing.
I was pretty impressed. I don't know about Scott. Scott, would you be impressed by Batman? I mean,
any superhero. I'd want a ticket to get in that line.
Not any.
But we all know that Mike does not get his hair cut.
Not
anywhere.
I got this one cut right here.
You got one cut.
He gets the ends taken off.
There you go. But now you said any superhero, not Aquaman.
No. He didn't have my favorite haircut.
There you go. So,
You're trying to tell me he was all wet.
Yeah, he was.
Can't you make me look like Wolverine?
I guarantee she can.
That's where I'm going. Where's this place again?
It's Erin's. Erin is the owner. She does the hair, and Erin Peterson is over at the Hair Lair, and it's right over on the corner of Hillside and Highway 89, right at the roundabout out in front of Watson Lake.
That's the one where everybody thinks the main road has the right of way.
Yes, we'll get on to the, since we're talking about safety, we will get into how roundabouts work and who's supposed to yield and who's not. And another pet peeve of mine that we're going to discuss later on. But Scott, the recall we're talking about, have you heard about it at all?
I have not.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to say real quick, for years and years, David and I have discussed that when you have your car keys, if you have more than your car key and your house key on your key ring, don't put them in the ignition switch and put all that weight on your ignition. Now, with that being said, David's got all this information, and you can give us a quick rundown on how this works and what the actual problem is and how people can solve it on those cars, because those cars have to be fixed, but prevent it on their cars that may not be quote unquote affected, although from your experience at the dealer, maybe no cars are affected.
Well, we'll see. But realistically, first thing I want to say, Mike, is we don't want to give the impression that we're bashing GM here, because in all frank honesty, I think this is we humans screwing up the world. Okay? And when Mike says you put one key in the ignition switch and not your key plus your other 16 keys and your little doodads and what have you, which, by the way, people, I've got the same amount of stuff you got. I just have it on 2 key rings.
Well, you got all those Solstice keys.
Yeah, I got Solstice keys. I got keys for Grams, terraplanes, houses, flower shops. You don't know. I got the keys for everything. But the fact is when you put all those keys on that key ring, you're putting tremendous leverage.
You've even got my keys.
Yes, I do.
But I'm
my
not
keys.
But I'm not on your key ring.
No, too big. But you put all that weight on that one little key ring, you hang it out of that ignition switch, and you're thinking, this probably doesn't matter. Listen, people, physics really does matter, and what it's causing on these particular ignition switches is it can cause the ignition switch to fail and go out of the proper position, and the car can all of a sudden be off at very inopportune times, and I believe it's 13 people have been killed this way. And it's really because the engineers didn't think people were going to hang everything they owned on the end of the keys. And so it doesn't matter whether it's this car or any of these cars or other cars, you shouldn't do that. But on these cars in particular, yeah, they're all up for a safety recall. It is a big deal. This is not the optional type of thing in your life where you say, I could live with the window not working. This is get the car fixed as soon as possible.
So this isn't the 80s, 90s, my paint's peeling in the Arizona death sun. This is like real recall, serious, they're looking out for our safety.
Yes.
As a manufacturer, maybe they're looking out for their liability. I don't care. They're saying, hey, there's a problem, get your car in and get it fixed.
Yeah, that's what it's about. And there has been somewhat of a lag, because if we all think about it, it makes sense. If the engineers designed a part a certain way and made it that way thinking it was okay, and then they find out, oh, it doesn't really work in the real world, it takes some physical time to replace these. They had to design one that actually will guarantee it's going to work, which they've got now, and it's only been the last couple of days, I believe 4/8, that they could start actually ordering the parts, so they can order the parts and replace them. What I have been told is that if you are worried about driving the car, because this is a real safety life and death issue, you can actually go to the dealership, bring your car there, park it, and they're supposed to give you a free rental car, and GM's picking up the tab on the whole thing.
Interesting. There is on our Facebook page, David, just so you know, because I knew you were going to talk about this, there is on our Facebook page a link to the GM site that has the, what do they call it, the recall information. And so if you are driving any one of those cars, if you go to our Facebook page, of course, it's facebook.com/allboutradio. All Bout Radio? No.
No, I thought it was All About Cars. He's forgotten the name already.
I've forgotten the name. Oh, man. It's All About...
That's depressing.
It's facebook.com/allboutcarsradio is how you get to us. Like our page. We do giveaways. Our sponsors get on there. But if you go to our page, there is information like this. Information exactly about this. I put this out a couple days ago when you and I talked about it. I put this out so that our listeners would be able to go, click on the link, see if their car's listed, see what they are supposed to do, and they can even print it out and have irrefutable evidence if they go to their dealer and speak to somebody who doesn't know.
Yeah, and one of the funny things about this is about a year and a half ago, Becca couldn't turn her car off in our driveway. So my son, he's asking me, Sebastian says, Dad, how the hell do you turn off the car? I can't turn it off.
A 45 right through the block.
Yeah, it might have worked. But you know what it really says is it says that this was the beginning of the failure of that ignition switch.
I agree. And I hope for Miss Becca, as I like to call her, Buff Becca, I hope she's getting her car taken care of with that problem because I don't want anything bad to happen to any one of the three of you.
Well, I don't want anything bad to happen to any one of us, too, and I really appreciate that you care about it and that we care about it and enough of it out here in the public that all of you know. Please check our Facebook or go online somewhere, find out if your car is covered, and if it is, get it down to the dealership, get it done.
There you go, and don't forget, if you take nothing from this, remove your keys from your key ring. Just run the ignition key. You don't need everything else on there. That's your safety tip from All About Cars here at 100.9 and 1450 AM. We'll be right back after just a little bit of music.
Like they was standing still.